There are times when a school contacting a parent is the quickest way for the parent to find out that something's going wrong in the school. I would push back and say, but what does the parent do now? The parent who's a believer prays. Maybe it was good for the child to be able to say to mom, hey, I love you. Like, I get that. I'm still not convinced that that's enough of a reason.
It seems like there's a rise in violence, and in that rise in violence, it can put us as parents in some dark places. We can imagine our kids in different scenarios that really they don't belong in, but oftentimes find themselves in. When we read reports of different things that have happened in the world, whether it's shootings in schools or other events, we can find ourselves questioning how our kids would react and what they would look like for them to be in those situations. And putting ourselves in those places can be really dark. But today on the Celebrate Kids podcast, in this daily segment, Facing the Dark, Dr. Kathy looks at some of these issues. How do we deal with some of the rise in violence and violent crimes, especially against children? And how do we do it with a way that honors the Lord and isn't captured by the cultural moment, but understands the full story? Let's turn now to Dr. Kathy.
Don't be afraid of the dark. Be careful with stars. Not every light is gonna guide you, baby. Not every light is gonna guide you.
Dr. Kathy, there's a recent poll of 1,500 parents that was commissioned by the National Parents Union, or NPU, which is an advocacy group. And they found that among parents whose children take their phones to school, 78% said the reason for doing so is that they can use their device during emergencies. In addition, 48% cited coordinating transportation as the reason that they have phones with them at pretty much all times, and 45% cited mental health and other needs as reasons they want their children to take their phones with them to school. The poll really didn't ask whether parents supported or opposed phone bans that are now taking place in many schools around the nation. You know, Dr. Kathy, I wanted to talk about this a little bit, partly because recently we've seen some different school shootings, and from those, we've heard different testimonies of families that have been texting back and forth with students who are in the school. And it's one of those things that I think parents really want to encourage or see their kids have is communication to the outside world in the event that there might be a school shooting or an active shooter scenario. I think many parents now almost expect their kids to have their phones on them at all times. But as a parent like myself, who's really aware of the distracting nature of phones in schools, I really balk at this. What do you make of this? Is it wise for us to just think that our kids should have their phones on them at all times, especially for situations like emergency or coordinating transportation or even for mental health reasons? What are your thoughts on this, Dr. Kathy?
Yeah, I'm glad we're talking about it again. And I say again because we do keep coming back because we have to, because it's the concern of the day for so many of our parents and really our whole families. So I actually want to remind everyone that the phone is a leading contributor to mental health issues. So I understand that maybe they're sending a kid to school who has some stress and anxiety and depression, and they think that, being able to reach out to their kid in the middle of the day is a blessing. Actually, the kid having the phone and potentially knowing that mom is anxious contributes to the child's anxiety and potentially invites that child to go onto social media sites in the middle of the day, when in the bathroom or in the hallway, and she doesn't need to be going there. So I would say mental health is not a legit reason. Do I understand coordinating transportation? Sure. I'm coming in at 3:40 instead of 3:30. I can imagine every parent would want to be able to communicate that. What do we do in the quote-unquote old days? We waited on the curb for our parent, and we assumed we would not be forgotten. And if something majorly changed, they called the school office, and the school office had an office page who ran the message to the classroom that we were in at the end of the day. So I can't imagine that there isn't any school who would coordinate, some type of message receiving when we don't have phones in our schools. I think it's a distraction. I think it's unnecessary. And it is a distraction, like you were saying, Wayne. It's a distraction in the academic day where the child is potentially wondering about the ping and the ding on the phone. What if I also said that it's a distraction in the middle of an emergency? What if there is a school shooter and your child is looking down, looking at the phone, frantically trying to reach mom or dad or text grandma, and because she's distracted, she actually doesn't hear a teacher say what it is that the teacher's saying about, let's go to this corner of the room or whatever. So not convinced it's a good idea. Most of our schools, if not all of our schools today, have a security system in place for the teachers to use and for the administration to use. And you and I both know that if there is an active school shooter or school shooting that's taking place, the local police department's going to be all over that because the administration is going to do the alerts and do the secure, communication system, and then the parents can find out with the crawl across the bottom of the screen like everybody else. Not ideal. I understand the passion of our parents who are concerned, but I'm not convinced that every child needs their own phone in order to protect our kids.
Dr. Kathy, I think those are really good points for us to think through as we process it. I will say that in some of the recent reports that we've read from different active shooter scenarios, it seems like information in some ways almost gets out quicker from the kids to their parents, and then the parents kind of get up in arms because these kids aren't really necessarily quote unquote following protocol on some of this. But all of that said, I don't know if I really want to get into this place of critiquing anyone's concerns, and maybe it's a little bit me just kind of as a dad where I don't know if I should maybe dad-splain how this kind of works out and how I understand it. But statistically, most kids won't experience what I would say most parents would give their kids a phone for in these situations to help them feel better, right? The idea that there might be an active shooter scenario is really statistically not something that my kids will experience. It's something that we read about in the news, but it definitely has this idea, especially in our culture, that our kids are going to experience this at some point, and so they should have some type of communication device to get back out to the world. When I think about this, I want to ask you a little bit more, though, into the root of technology, because I think even for parents, we build our sense of security based on this idea that we can have technology or have our kids be able to reach out to us at any point. It's almost like we build a sense of security for our kids that they can use this technology to connect with us when they're in different school situations, whether that be something that's an emergency or something as simple as I'm going to pick you up by the pool door instead of the front door, right? That there gets to be this sense of security we build as parents for kids. I also wonder, what does that do for our kids when we build even a sense of security or kind of normalcy for our kids to have as a root or a base for them, that they always have their cell phone with them? It's almost like that, before you head off to school, when I would go to school back in the day, it would be, my mom would say, make sure you have your lunch. Now I can see a parent saying, make sure you bring your cell phone, because we've established that as really this point of contact for security. Is there something that we need to look at technology and phones differently inside of our houses? Should it be that place of security for moms and dads? And when it is that place of security for moms and dads, does that impact our kids?
Let me say something first that I've been thinking about since we were talking a few minutes ago. You're correct that there are times when a school contacting a parent is the quickest way for the parent to find out that something's going wrong in the school. I would push back and say, but what does the parent do now? The parent who's a believer prays. Maybe it was good for the child to be able to say to mom, hey, I love you. Like, I get that. I'm still not convinced that that's enough of a reason, because like you were saying, it is rare that it's going to happen. And I want us to trust the system that the school has in place, because there isn't a school today that does not have a system in place for internal communication and an internal way of dealing with it. I think for us to say that our phone is our security is dangerous. Our heart can be our security. I want parents to encourage children to trust the school's system that's been set up for difficult moments. And if they can't trust the school system, then you go to the headmaster or the principal of the school and say, we want to know a little bit more about how you handle it when there's something difficult that goes on. And I think it is appropriate that we say to our kids, it's super rare. Just like you're saying, the chances of it happening in the school where your children attend is super rare. When I was a child, we did tornado drills. I remember, I don't remember, but I remember being told that we would scrunch under the desk, scrunch under the desk, and this is what we do if we find out that there's a tornado nearby. And we knew that it was rare that it would happen, but if it would happen, this is what we would do to be protected by this little desk. That was going to really help. I don't know. So you can have a drill at school. You can have a drill at home. Like, do we have drills at home if we think that, communicating with the phone is critically important? Then is that what we do if we're at work and our kids are at home and we're concerned about something that might be going wrong? I don't know.
Yeah, Dr. Kathy, I do think that that's really important for us as parents. It's almost this idea of like, how do we teach our kids what to do in those situations, right? It's natural for us, I think, as moms and dads to say, when you're in those situations, contact me. But like you said, what's a parent going to do in that situation, right? The school has really the competence to act rightly for what's best for the student in that moment. And it kind of leads me to that idea that you have really laid out for us in 5 to Thrive, that we really build this understanding of security and identity and belonging and purpose, and that enables us then to live and act and breathe and think competently. And I think talking to our kids about what we do in these situations can be really helpful, not only to give them a sense of what they should do, but also who they should trust and who they should spend time with and what they should identify as in that moment. Are they the leader of the group, or are they best suited to be somebody who follows the leadership of the teacher or the administrator or those police officers in that moment? And then it gives them a sense of purpose, as they're participating in that. My purpose here is to act in this certain way, and then it builds their understanding of competence. I just think that 5 to Thrive is a fantastic way of engaging so many things in life. What does it look like when we talk to our kids then about some of these scary situations? Is it helpful to walk through, the 5 core needs and kind of help them think through that? Or what should we do as we talk to them about this? And how should we talk to them about this? What is the setting or the context that we do that? Do we do it when, feelings are heightened and there has been a school shooting and our kids have known about it, or maybe they don't know about it, so we educate them about it, and then we say, here's what we would like you to do in these moments? Or is it better for us to, pick a time where it's peaceful and we talk about these things? When is the best time to talk to our kids about this stuff? And how do we talk to our kids about this when we do have those conversations?
I think the best time is when we are calm and secure and nothing is going wrong. And we maybe put it in the context of, we desire you to be competent. We want you to be able to think and learn and concentrate and be curious and academically oriented when you're at school. Same thing would be in Sunday school, that you'll be oriented on learning new things and curious and leaning into the teachers. And because you go to school and you go to Sunday school, you go to, an American Heritage Girls Club and all of that to learn, then we know that you need purpose. And we also know that belonging matters and feeling safe with a collective group of people matters. So you're not anxious. And then you need to know who you are. Your identity matters. And what do your mom and I tell you all the time? We tell you that you're faithful and curious and, loving and lovable and, energized to learn and resilient. You don't give up. And then all of that depends upon security, which is who can I trust? So if you're anxious at home, at school, at church, at your place of work, and you're anxious and looking around the corner and just never able to really focus because there's such a buzz in your head, you won't have the right identity, belonging, purpose, or competence. So I might teach this going backwards a little bit and let the kid know that the reason that we practice security, the reason that we talk with you about who you can trust, the reason we've had you memorize grandma's phone number in case you need to borrow someone's phone. Nowadays, none of us have phone numbers memorized. I have a note with me in my backpack, in my briefcase, and in my purse of significant phone numbers, including yours, because I don't have it memorized. So if I lose my phone, I am in big trouble. So, maybe we teach those things to our kids and we tell them why it's important that you know who's trustworthy. And then, Wayne, what if we teach how you determine trustworthiness? Who's dependable and who apologizes and who's there for you and who shows up and who's, on your side and consistently dependable and all those kinds of things, who knows your name, and remembers it. And we talk to the kids about how that matters. And because all that matters, we will occasionally talk about difficult things, whether that be floods or hurricanes or tornadoes or school shootings or, a teacher getting cancer and having kids having to process why we got to allow that to happen to such a really good person. And we let them know that, evil exists and there are hard people in the world and we want you to be, prepared. And how would we want you to respond in those situations? You would listen well to the leadership and the people that we've helped you learn you can trust. You will not get in anyone's way. You'll pray fervently to God to be the protecting God that he can be, etc.
As Dr. Kathy was sharing today, it reminded me of a passage that comes out of Judges 7, and I'll begin reading at verse 15. As soon as Gideon heard the telling of the dream and his interpretation, he worshipped. And he returned to the camp of Israel and said, Arise, for the Lord has given the host of Midian into your hand. And he divided 300 men into 3 companies, and put trumpets into all the hands of all of them, and empty jars, with torches inside the jars. And he said to them, Look at me, and do likewise. When I come to the outskirts of the camp, do as I do. When I blow the trumpet, I and all who are with me, then blow the trumpets also on every side of all of the camp, and shout, For the Lord and for Gideon. Gideon was called by God to save Israel from the oppressive Midianites. Gideon was really unsure and scared and felt inadequate for the task throughout most of his story. Gideon expressed doubt about his ability to lead and really asked for multiple signs from God to confirm God's will. He reduced his army to about 300 men and, as instructed by the Lord, went into battle. And God gave him a victory over the Midianites, showing his power through Gideon's obedience. I wonder if in these moments when we find ourselves really scared even of us in this cultural moment, the same way that Gideon was, scared of the cultural moment that we find ourselves in the battle that's before us, knowing that we're really called to it, but really feel inadequate, scared, and really unsure of what the outcome would be. What if we practice the things that Gideon practiced? Things like spending time inside of Scripture and going to church and talking to friends who are believers about what God is doing in their life provide, I would say, context for God to work, and even channels that we can find really hope and encouragement for. So today, be that person that goes and finds where God is speaking and sit in it and understand what God is calling you to, especially if you're in fear of the different things that are going to be in front of your kids. I think getting into that rhythm and that habit can give us a bright light that we can then share to our kids in dark times. I want to thank you for listening to the Celebrate Kids podcast, this daily segment Facing the Dark. On behalf of Dr. Kathy Cook, my name is Wayne Stender. Thanks for listening, and we're looking forward to seeing you here again tomorrow.